a PhD is, everyone says, I never knew that, I never thought that it would be a thing where I wasn't passionate enough, because a lot of people say, you know, like if you're going to do a PhD in something, like you need to make sure you're passionate about it. And I was like, I always knew I had that down pat.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I'm fine in that department. Even though the passion does, you know, it also waned a little bit here and there, which is a little freaky, was a little freaky at times, but it was never fully gone. But, and then,
What was the most challenging part of this?
I would say there was the most challenging part was basically towards the end, finishing up at the end. But there was another second place was basically the middle of the program, after I had just taken my qualifying exam. So about 2.5-3 years in, you do something called a qualifying exam, which is you have to have all of the knowledge in your, it's everything, it's all of astrophysics, it's the whole universe, everything that we learned in our grad classes, which was the whole universe. And also my research at the time, and my research for that time period was star clusters in dwarf galaxies. So dwarf galaxies are kind of like these amorphous galaxies that aren't massive enough to have a spiral or elliptical shape, and so there's a lot that we can study nearby the Milky Way. So basically at this point in your program, you stand in front of a blackboard for 2 hours, and 1 hour you're being questioned on your research, and then another hour you're being questioned on anything is fair game in the whole universe. And they always say that so I really buckled down for that and studied for a few months, and that was a really big accomplishment, passing that, which I was able to pass the first time. They always say the peak of your knowledge is the day that you take your qualifying exam, because then it all always goes down from there, and it's probably I mean a little bit true, because when else are you going to be so well studied and well read on everything? And then after that you go into your specialty more, right? And so it was weird. This is why I really try to speak a lot on like mental health stuff with academia, because especially it's just kind of ridiculous, because still, even in 2023, when you think that everyone has gone through all this mental health stuff with the pandemic, and it just everyone has this woke culture, and everyone thinks like, oh no, we care about things now. It's that has not trickled down into the academia that I know. Nobody shows weakness. Nobody admits that anything is wrong. Everyone is and everyone has imposter syndrome, but nobody, it's literally not acceptable to like show signs of weakness. Like it's not. And so what happened was, then a few months after my qualifying exam, like the burnout just like hit me like crazy. And I just really went through this deep slump of burnout, and I had no idea why. And I thought that I was the only one. And then what happened was I Googled something like, I don't know, like no motivation after your qualifying exam, PhD program, something like that. Turns out it's this whole thing. It's a thing. It's a thing that it's really common after this point in your journey, to really like have some depression or burnout or lose motivation and stuff. And that, it picks up, it's like a graph, but it's a very common thing. And I was like pissed when I found this out, because I had been in grad school already for 3 years at this point. I met people, like I've been to conferences, I have networked, like I had been in grad school for 3 years, and I had to Google to find out that my depression at that point in my 3rd year of my program was normal. 2 months into it, I had to sit for 2 months like in sadness and think that I was broken. I had been in school for 3 years already at that point. That message didn't make its way to me, that's a normal thing. It was fucked up.
That's crazy, yeah.
If I can curse on
For sure.
So
how do you navigate it? Because the thing is like, so if you because you have like it's climaxing in 2 hours, basically all these years that you prepped for that moment. How do you manage this stress? And like, can you, if you miss that, what happens? Like, is it basically can you repass it, or is it?
Yeah. So the way that we did it in our program, every program is different. The way that we did it was, you had two chances to pass. And it was also, so if you didn't pass your first time, there was another one, but then there was also to get you to PhD candidacy, you had to pass the qualifying exam, but then it was also kind of holistic based on your performance in classes and everything else. So there was an overall vote. So it was technically a part of it, but it was an important part. But you did have a second chance, which was nice, but which you could take like a few months later. But yeah, it was a lot of pressure. And, I didn't realize until I got to that was the other thing, is the whole point, every stage of this long 7-year, so in general, PhDs in like sciences like physics and astrophysics definitely take like between 5 and 7 years. Every program is different. I would say some people can do it in 5, and my program, people leaned more towards like 6 to 7. Sometimes people took 8 too, or longer. Honestly, it depends, because this is so much. It's such a huge phase of life, and sometimes people have big life events that happen in that time. That was my entire 20s. I was there from age 22 to 29. So it's like, it's your whole 20s. And so yeah, it's, the whole first part of the program, that's at the top of the hill. And that there's more to do after that, because then you have to do your thesis. But actually that almost was, it was basically the biggest culmination point of your whole program. You had to pass that to get to the rest. And so it was definitely a lot of pressure, and it was blinders on that moment for years. And and it was big relief. It was like the best day. It's in my top like 3 to 5 categories of the best days of my life. Was definitely that day. It was very rewarding to pass.
Is there like people who really after that really like go deep into the depression and
there are,
and like not even come back to the thing or like things like that?
Yeah, that's also, it's also a big point of a lot of people don't make it past. There are people that don't make it past that point in the program. There are people that don't pass. It's kind of like a weeding out point. There's most people, most people do, but there's definitely a percentage that don't make it past that point for one reason or another, or kind of just choose to opt out. But I think I think there is a huge percentage of people that, because this is what the feeling was I didn't understand how, like, I had just gotten to the top of this mountain that I had been dying to climb for, and I was like so gung-ho on for years, and I had gotten to the top, and I felt like I was at the peak of my knowledge, and I was the most confident I had ever been, because I definitely had a lot more imposter syndrome before that, and truly all that studying, it did help me, and I really did feel like I knew what I was doing after that point. And then all of a sudden, when just like the immense burnout just hits you like really out of left field, and just all of this stuff. And that's why it was so weird, because it came like right off the heels of this really peak moment where so I wasn't expecting it. But I do think a lot of people go through that. And I think there's still so many people that don't know what that is, or that judge themselves. And I think people, probably have their own way of getting out of it, because just like anything in life, like nothing lasts forever. So these are phases, and people have their way of getting out of it. But I think it's kind of just one of those things where, just like anything, it's exacerbated by you judging yourself throughout the whole time. And my guess would just be that people just make it worse on themselves, because people are making it worse on themselves than they need for it to be. And my mission is, from whatever I can control, or like I was back in my department a few months ago talking to some of the younger grad students, and I informed them that some of the students that had just passed their exams and everything, and they were going through the same thing, they're going through the same burnout, and I was like their little fairy godmother from the future, and I was like telling them this is normal. Like, don't be hard on yourself. Like, take it easy. If you go months without doing work, like, it's fine. Like, I did that so many times in the time. And just the relief on their faces, because it was the same thing. They didn't know either. This is what I'm saying. Like, it's
nobody tell you. Yeah.
Nobody tells you anything, because everyone pretends to care about mental health, and they pretend to care that, like, oh no, now this matters, or like, now we care about you as a human. But then they still go out and they just put on their brave faces. And so it's ridiculous. Like, the relief in these people's and these guys, it was like these two guys in my program, the relief in their face, they were like really, they were like, that's normal. Wow, I'm so glad you said that. Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. And I was like, yes, it's normal. And so, I just think it's all about giving people more permission, because I don't think there's necessarily maybe a way to stop that period of burnout or anything, but it's just like, what, how much worse are you going to make it for yourself by beating yourself up?
Yeah, totally.